Good morning. Hey, some folks have been asking about this video series, and I just want to say thank you to the 40 or 50 people watching every week. And so somebody asked, like, how do I decide on the topic? How do I decide how long the story should go? Really, I'm trying to stick to the Moth storytelling limits. The story's told in the first person. It's told unscripted. Uh, it has to be true in the first person in around 5 minutes. So that's my goal. I usually have an idea on Thursday or Friday. I might make a few notes over the weekend, rehearse it in my head a couple times, and then on Monday morning, I record and I post unedited because I have no idea how to edit video yet, and or nor do I have the computer to do the editing. So here's today's story. As many of you know, last weekend, 10 days ago, I left town and went to Alabama for a funeral to pay my respects to my uncle and his family. My Uncle Randy, who I told you the story 2 weeks ago about, who answered the phone of the stranger and talked for 30 minutes. You know, when I was a kid, we used to travel to Alabama pretty frequently. My dad was born and raised in Alabama, and he moved to Ohio in 1969, met my mother in 1970, married her in 1971, and he never lived anywhere else after he come to Ohio. But 5 of his 6 brothers and sisters live in Alabama. 3 were always there. 2 were career military and come back to Alabama after they retired. And only he and his brother, who's in Illinois, come north for work and stayed with their families. So when I was a kid, we'd go to Alabama pretty frequently. And to me, this was better. We didn't really do big family vacations. We went to Alabama. We stayed at my grandmother's apartment, I told you about a few weeks ago with my Uncle Randy's room. And we knew the kids in the neighborhood where my grandmother lived in the apartment complex there. We knew the playground. We knew how to get to the store. We knew how to get to the ball field. And that was our vacation. I was going to Alabama. But a funny thing would happen when you're 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 years old. When you're in Alabama, it's easy to pick up the local accent or the southern dialect. And I would do that quickly. There are words they use that we don't use in Ohio, like buggy is the shopping cart. They would say, I'm going to carry your mama or carry your grandma. That means I'm going to give her a ride or take her someplace. The fixin' to do things, that means they're getting ready. And a host of other words. Y'all was the easy one. Food we ate was different, sometimes exotic. I remember fried okra. I remember greens. I remember beans and cornbread regularly. Food was a little different, and we liked it, and that's how we grew up. I was in Alabama 3 or 4 times a year. And occasionally, we would get to take a long trip, a week or 10 days, right before school started. And my mom one time wrote a note to our teacher explaining that the accent that we had at the beginning of school would fade quickly. So my brother and I would quickly pick up the accent, playing with our cousins, other kids, and just talking to our aunts and uncles. And it was pretty thick. I think, looking back now, it was our way of identifying with the Sudduths, because we were not Alabama Sudduths, we were Ohio Sudduths, and there were no other Sudduths in Ohio, just the 4 of us growing up. And I really, really wanted to identify with my father's family. So the accent seems to be the way that we could do that. I would say until college, I could go to Alabama for the weekend, pick up an accent pretty quick, and keep it with me when I got home. But 2 weeks ago, something funny happened. I went down, I got there late Friday night to my aunt and uncle's home. I met my mom there before the funeral and spent the day with cousins and aunts and uncles at the funeral on Friday and Friday night. And then Saturday began my drive home. And as I stopped at the gas station in the town where they lived, I remember talking to the lady about the gas and the couple purchases I made. I realized I didn't have an accent. I didn't use any twang. It wasn't slower than normal. And she said, "Where are you from?" Common question. I said, "I'm from Ohio." And she said, "You don't sound like you're from around here." I said, "No, ma'am, I'm from Ohio, but my family is here." I got in the car and realized that something had happened this last trip that maybe I didn't even realize before, is that as a kid, I would pick up the accent because I wanted to be as much Alabama Sudeth as possible. That an accent would make me more Sudeth than without. But being with family this last weekend down there and really feeling at home in my own skin as a northerner, somebody who never lived in Alabama, who never will, most likely, that I'm as much Sudeth as anybody else. That my namesake is as strong as theirs, and the accent doesn't make you a Sudeth, the family does. And I think for the first time I feel the confidence in that we are as much Sudeth here in Ohio as we are there. So I think what I've learned is really that our identity doesn't have to be artificial. Our identity can be exactly who we are. And I know I've spent a lot of time thinking about that in the last 10 days. Personal identity wrapped around things I wanted to be or wasn't. All along, I was always a Sudeth. My dad was the oldest of 7. I was his second child. I carry his name. And I don't need the accent to make me any more Sudeth than my cousins who are still in Franklin County, Alabama, where our family's been for almost 200 years. So this week, I hope that you know your identity and know you don't have to put on a label or a look or a sound or a face to be who you are. And I hope the story helps. I hope you enjoy the story with me this morning. And another story time with Brian this week, and we'll do another one next week, I promise. Until then, go make a new friend, tell a story, and I'll see you back here in a week. Thanks.